The pessimistic and volatile week for US stocks is coming to an end. Investors are regaining optimism and a risk-on mood. Are there any fundamentals for the optimistic market sentiment? Let's find it out. The benchmark stock indexes halted a losing streak and gained ground in sync. The Dow Jones rose 0.61% intraday, and the Nasdaq closed 0.6% up, and the S&P 500 gained 0.66% to close at 4,006 points. Wall Street indexes traded higher in the New York pre-market. The S&P 500 is expected to trade in the intraday corridor between 3,970 and 4,090 points. The key stock indexes closed in the green yesterday, despite upbeat unemployment claims and the hawkish comments by Fed's chairman Jerome Powell. The number of initial jobless claims declined by 6,000 to 222,000 last week. It's at their lowest level since late May, and thus proving the health of the US labor market. In return, the Federal Reserve has another leverage to act more aggressively. Besides, the regulator does not rule out soft landing. Analysts have drawn this conclusion from Powell's speech yesterday. We think we can avoid the kind of very high social costs that poll worker and the Fed had to bring into play in the 1980s, Powell said. And the policymaker reiterated in the public that the central bank is committed to its combat against inflation. The regulator will proceed with its aggressive auctions until the work is done. Such hawkish rhetoric pushed the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq down by 7% and 9.6% respectively, since their peaks in mid-August. According to Fed watch, traders increased their bets to the rate hike by 75 basis points in September to 87% from 57% a week ago. The Fed's hawkishness gives investors some hope that inflation is cooling down, and the red-hot CPI data from China proves easing inflationary pressure because consumer inflation slackened more than expected. The market will get to know the US CPI next week, and today futures on the stock indexes suggested that Wall Street is on a track to close the week with gains. The high-tech sector was under the spotlight in the New York pre-market. The stocks of companies with a mega capitalization such as Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, Amazon and Meta traded in the green before the opening bell. Besides, shares of banks and energy companies also went up in confidence. Caterpillar stocks rose 1.6% after the company came to terms with the US tax agency. Investors will turn attention to comments by more Fed's policymakers tonight. And Friday is not the best day for the US dollar index. It dropped 1.5% intraday, but recovered to 108.9 in the early American session. The intraday corridor is seen between 108.60 and 109.70. Following a month of a stunning growth due to the highest level in 20 years, today the index has incurred the biggest losses since early August. The euro surged by 1.2% to a three-week high of 1.0114 against the greenback, but it dipped later on. The pound sterling and the yen also regained some losses, and yesterday the ECB raised the key interest rate by 75 basis points, with the sharpest increase in its history. Other European central banks are on the same page with the US Fed in terms of the fight against inflation. ECB leader Christine Lagarde refers to the firm US dollar as a culprit. The Bank of England is expected to make the same decision next week. One of the reasons is concern about the sterling slump to the weakest level in 37 years within the week. The Bank of Japan threatens to take action and intervene on the forex bid purchases, aiming to stem a rapid decline on the yen. Goldman Sachs upgraded its forecast for the US Fed and now predicts a rate hike by 75 basis points in September and by 50 basis points in November. The USD CAD pay is trading lower today at about 1.3036 amid the US dollar's weakness. The intraday CAD for the pair is between 1.2980 and 1.3110. Fresh economic data today revealed a significant rise in Canada's unemployment rate. The jobless rate climbed to 5.4% from the record low of 4.9% in the last 2 months. The actual rise is higher than the expected 5% increase. It's the first rise in the unemployment rate over the last 7 months. In terms of economic sectors, employment decreased in education, construction, and the public sector. The private sector and the self-employed reported on the minor changes. The commodity-reliant loonie has been wound down by the energy crisis in Europe. EU energy ministers will assemble in Brussels to discuss oil and gas price caps and other measures to exit the energy crisis. Ahead of the summit, oil prices tried to settle above $90. Brent crude futures added 2.88% to trade at $91.72 a barrel, and WTI futures grew 3.06%. Nevertheless, the benchmark oil grades are still 27% from the highs of mid-June. The crypto market perked up today. Bitcoin surpassed the landmark level of $20,000 and it was trading at $21,020 at the moment of recording this video. Thus, the flagship crypto has gained 8.4% before the American session. Bitcoin could have the best trading day over the last 6 weeks. Obviously, the benefactor of Bitcoin's notable growth today is the opposite correlation with the US dollar index. There are no other fundamentals for the growing risk appetite. Apart from Bitcoin, Ethereum jumped 3.48% to a 2-week high at $1,702. If the cryptocurrencies manage to assert strength until late Sunday, Bitcoin will close the week with the strongest results over months. The intraday CAD for the token is defined between $19,800 and $21,400. And make profits with the InstaForex and have a nice weekend. See you on Monday.